Right, so with that, I'll declare the meeting open and welcome council members and the members of the public that are watching via live stream. And we may have a couple of councillors viewing via that pathway as well shortly. So without further ado, we'll move on to the Canacare Ash, thanks.
Kia marama, kia hoa, tutuki, kia ora, hangia, hui, tāi kia.
Thank you. Right, apologies. We have Councillor Gillett, apologies for the open part of the meeting, and he'll be hopefully joining us around after 3. Councillor Neil will log in if possible. She's currently tied up with her husband at Christchurch Hospital. Councillor Timahoe will be joining us at some stage as well, so we will see if come through onto the meeting. Can I please have someone move and second the apology from Councillor Gillett, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. We've received and accepted. Thank you, guys. Declarations of interest. It's important that this is kept up to date, so please don't sort of think, oh, I've got it right. If there's anything that needs to be added to the list, please go and do, and we can familiarise yourselves with what you've got on there. Urgent items not on the agenda, there is nothing there for that. So we'll move on to the minutes of the previous meetings. The ordinary council meeting minutes of 25th May 2023 and the extraordinary council meeting minutes of the 7th of June. Can I have a move on the 7th, please? On those, thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Phelps, thank you very much. Move, Councillor Beard. The Council Phelps resolved that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 25th of May 2023 and the extraordinary council meeting held on the 7th of June 2023 be confirmed as a true, correct record of the meeting. I also approve that my digital signature be added to the confirmed ordinary council meeting minutes of 25 May 2023 and the extraordinary council meeting minutes of 7th of June 2023. Busy. Right, so we'll move straight on to the action list and hand over to Simon, please.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. I'll run through the action list, but there's a couple of actions within that which I have asked support from Josephson Associates, particularly due to the racecourse, and I'll ask Paul to come in at that time. Paki Waitara and council officers, obviously we're still having work evaluated and revisited some of the costings and previous reports. We have got some quotes currently to look at the roof, so that has been assessed in the last fortnight. The quote for repair for the roof, as a full replacement is proposed, is around $170,000 for the roof itself, and there's some other gutter works as well. Just to remind council, there is a budget allocated in there for structural and internal, mainly for structural repairs, to make sure that the building water egress is not an issue future state. The government building. You would have got an update in your reference material as part of the agenda today, and a statement from the CEO here at New Zealand, Andrew Coleman. I see it's already in both the press releases. So it's pretty straightforward. They're still working through various aspects of the design, and obviously they are still working through the funding requirements still to complete that work. And we are evaluating the commercial options that they've tabled to date. There's further conversations yet to be had. That will go into the mix when we talk about the building and pre-building headquarters and future state. There'll be workshop around that for councillors at a later date. Racecourse, Hokitika Racecourse. So we've had a number of engagement sessions, the last one being the 10th of June. And then I will ask Paul to join us now and give a verbal update in terms of the engagement. Thank you, Paul.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
Thank you very much, Simon. Kia ora, Madam Mayor and councillors. These exercises are always really humbling when a community puts a lot of trust in you to represent the voices that have come through. So we've had the two facilitated stakeholder workshops and a drop-in session as well, open to the general public. So far, we've received about 45 written submissions. We had 30 to 40 people at each of the workshops, and we had approximately 80 people come in for the drop-in session. I'd like to just take a minute and thank the elected members as well for the participation and advocacy for people to be involved. We will be back to you in next council meeting with a full written report on the engagement findings and also the civils cost certainty updates, which is a concurrent activity based on the two resolutions to date. So that was a previous council meeting that we attended. So the submission process closes on the 30th. So definitely, I think, another call out to the community to have a look on the website, assess the information that's been provided, and all openness and transparency, and keep those submissions coming in would be fantastic. But if there's any questions or concerns at this point in time while the submission process is open, it'd be really good to get some feedback from yourselves.
No, just the feedback I've had, Paul, was the fact that a lot of people that came up to the racecourse for the open day were surprised at just how easy it was. They were expecting it to be probably fairly formal and a lot of structure, and the fact that they stayed for 35, 40 minutes and more indicated the relaxed atmosphere, and gave them the ability to have some time and fully comprehend the discussions that are on the table. So that went down exceptionally well, so thank you for that, because your input, guys, your input into that and your management of it was exceptionally good. So we're very grateful. Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jason, for joining us. Just to highlight to councillors, 30th of June, we have penciled in a workshop with councillors just to summarise the engagement feedback. That also obviously set direction in terms of the final report to come back to council. Bit off funding tranche 1, we provided a report last month. In discussion with the worship, we don't believe it's required monthly unless there's a significant change. I will be including it next month as part of my CE's update, and we'll have a discussion with the worship if there's significant changes in that space.
And I just said, if there is anything that we need to get out to councillors, as a one, we will be doing that from when that arises.
A summary of subsidies and grants received. We are planning to include that as part of my CE's update next month as well, which I think we'll look at going back 3 years, just so we can see a transition over the last 3 or 4 years worth of work. Stafford Cemetery, obviously we have an MOU tabled now with Heritage Hokitika, yet to be signed. We are doing some scoping work in terms of the agreements around fencing and some minor interpretation of that work. So there was a meeting held at Stafford Cemetery today between council staff and Heritage Hokitika. The last action has been completed, the risk insurance. Any questions, council?
Through the chair, Simon, Government House or Heritage New Zealand, when do we expect some more numbers, clearer timelines and council report on that option?
So I intend to have another workshop with the council around reviewing the numbers. So we need to take those numbers into consideration when we talk about, the cost to council regarding this building and all leasing or tenancy in that building. So that's still under evaluation. We haven't landed a number with Heritage New Zealand yet. There's options to be discussed. But we're also doing some work around what does look like as in terms of provisional layout, in terms of, just to make sure that physically it can meet our requirements as well. So that work's underway. So I expect a workshop will be probably within the next 30 days, I'm hoping.
Yeah, just a question through your worship. At the moment, what the status of the building, just for clarity's sake, who owns it? Is Heritage New Zealand?
Heritage New Zealand.
Okay, right, okay. And we've got nothing really with them at this stage other than a verbal maybe, basically, as to where
working through a potential option. We have no commitment, so there's actually no onus on council to make a formal contribution or commitment to the process at this stage.
Right.
Yeah, just through the chair. The quote of 170K for the roof, is that just a one quote, is it?
At this stage,
Chair. Thank you.
so we're just pulling the pricing.
Yeah, sure.
And is that for a full replace as opposed to a, well,
Yeah, it's been assessed and it's on its way up rather than patch up. It's only a matter of time before we have to replace it.
May not be a problem in the future. We will spend $170,000 on a roof for a building that we may or may not have coming into the year.
well, that's a discussion that we'll be having as we progress, no doubt.
The replacement of the roof ought to be part of that discussion, shouldn't it?
So I think it's
As opposed to making it water.
critical criteria is to ensure obviously water is not providing further damage to the building.
Yeah. But that, my understanding from previous reports about that was the problem with that was the skylights in particular.
And windows and guttering, etc. So it's quite a bit of work in that.
So, yeah, okay. So then the guttering of the roof replacement, well,
No, that's additional cost.
so that's additional again, okay. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we should just, I realise what you're saying, that there's a budget for it, but that doesn't mean we have to spend it. Of course, no.
Obviously, the resale value would also be reflective of the current condition of the building anyway.
Yes, and you've got far more ability to negotiate down if the building's substandard, and you have to stick to your guns. Price it, Councillor Phillips.
No, I just think that we ought to have another option rather than full replacement of the roof, an option of making it watertight.
But it is, okay. If you want to guarantee watertight. Okay, we'll work through some options.
Well, I mean, we've got a building that we've just done in town, had the same issue, and the option was to either make it watertight or to replace the roof altogether, and the difference in cost was like something like $70,000. And the option was to make it watertight. I mean, there are ways around that.
What's the process for us actually eventually making a decision on that building?
We're waiting for the report on this building, the Waitara building and the government building, because we have got the restriction here that we've got to be out of here in 2 years' time for earthquake-proof standards.
June 27 is the,
27, sorry.
has to be, yeah.
Yes, so it has to be done on this if we're to stay in here. So it was also sort of perceived that if we have to shift out of here while this is earthquake-proofed, brought up to earthquake standards, we could shift into there in the interim, but because each one of these fits into one another as far as the final decision, it was decided to review the three buildings together and look at the big picture and then how it works and then make a decision. We're not going to lose money on the property unless it deteriorates. It's always going to be saleable, especially with its locality and the township makeup. So
It just strikes me that there was a comparatively rapid and relaxed process in purchasing that building, and there seems to be
well, at the moment we own it, and at the moment it's tenanted out where it's actually funding itself, so it's not costing the ratepayers as such as being a drain on ratepayer funds.
I wouldn't say we're totally covering the cost.
But we're pretty much there, aren't we?
So the subsidised amount,
Yes.
Is it at a loss to some extent or not?
only minor, so we are.
It's quite minor. What, $2, $20 or?
So we are paying around $50,000 a year in lease.
Yeah.
So it subsidises the running up, and we'll also use it for our own use as well. We haven't been chasing commercial leases, so we haven't been chasing any other avenues to fill it up. We don't know what the future obligation is.
And also you've got to have somebody prepared to go on there on a short-term lease anyway at the moment, because whatever decision we make, it determines that aspect. So, I mean, we've seen decisions that have been made in haste before and they're right or wrong. We don't have the pressure to have to sell it tomorrow. At the moment, it could be advantageous for it to keep us in a building, if this building is the selection for future of council. So Yes, if it was costing us a lot of money, then I guess that would change the need.
Through the workshop. So, of course, it already has cost us a lot of money. $1.2 million was the purchase cost, and then we spent money on making it watertight. That this time we had contractors calling over it, and how much was spent on that?
So you're talking about the original
After the purchase. After the purchase, and we got Jeff Evans, sorry, and Matthew Fairmade, and
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it substantial. I think there's about $20,000 that has gone against that cost today.
So as far as moving forward with this, Simon, that work's going ahead or it's not going ahead, you're waiting for another quote to come in before decisions are made on?
We haven't started doing it, but there's further conversations to have.
Yeah, so this is just the first conversation on it going forward.
We have started doing work on guttering, which is obviously some of the gutting failed, so that
It has to be done, so I see the water there constantly just flowing out, so that has to be addressed. So this is coming back to council anyway in August, isn't it?
is there an estimate of that cost for the guttering?
I don't have it in front of me. There's also butanol replacement to be done as well for the guttering.
There's nothing wrong with getting other options from tradespeople about the roof fixing it and replacement at all.
In terms of going out and tendering.
Oh no, not tendering, just getting other.
Further.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
No, it's good business, due diligence, and we need to do that. So no, we'll look forward to that coming back to us another day.
Okay.
That's all.
Any other questions?
Can I have someone please move and second? Thank you, Councillor Phelps, Councillor Reid, that we resolve that the updated action list be received. Thank you, everybody. I'm not too sure whether Mr. Cagle, whether James is online. Oh. But we also mentioned that Councillor Neil is now online, as here he is now, as is Councillor Timahoy. So welcome, guys, to this afternoon's proceedings.
Thanks, Helen.
And I hope everything's going all right in Christchurch there, Jane.
So do I. I've left him to it at the moment. Thank you.
So we'll move right on to the Waka Kotahi update. So James, if you'd like to come forward and take to the fold straight away. I'm sorry, it doesn't give you time to draw breath.
It's quite all right.
Yes, there, absolutely fine.
You've got brilliant. You've got that. This works.
Well, I'll just.
Right, in case I'll just pull that out, just in case I need to take some notes.
You're all fine.
I like mine. Thank you very much. Look, I'm relatively relaxed that you want to run this. I think ultimately this came about. I sent a letter to Simon updating on speed management, and Simon rightly said it was about time I showed up and we had a discussion about how things were going and everything. And so, look, if you want to focus the discussion on speed management, I'm more than happy to do that. My presentation runs through a bunch of things I think, frankly, you need to know, worth updating you on. Very happy if that's an open exchange, or you want to leave questions to the end, totally in your hands.
I think we'll perhaps have questions as you progress, because each section is a different subject, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely, perfect. Okay, so, look, top line, I just wanted to start with where we are today, as we sort of head straight ahead in what we are, because we're in winter, but having finished for me and for the West Coast, for most of the South Island actually, an exceptionally successful summer maintenance program. We've been lucky, is about how I describe it. The North Island, not so lucky. So I'm sure we will have a discussion about appropriate levels of maintenance and funding, etc. But given the current constraint on funding and maintenance, we managed to complete the full program last summer. And so whilst I'm absolutely certain there will be specific queries or concerns or complaints from residents and locals, I can tell you that actually the state highway network on the West Coast is one of the best in the country at the moment. And that doesn't preclude the discussion about where it needs to go to and how we need to maintain it. But actually, you're in a good space. You've had some weather events, you always do, but the team at Fulton Hogan genuinely do a good job to keep you as updated as we can, but more importantly, restore access as fast as we can.
LCCO, you mean?
If that's how we want. Just to note, I think two things on this slide before we move on. You can see the picture on the right, which is clearance on the rock shelters of the Otero Gorge. I do want to note one of the things we weren't able to do this summer is there is a significant reseal required in the gorge. You'll know that if you drive along. It's quite patchy, quite lumpy. It can't hold much longer. We absolutely need to program it this coming summer. We just about got it last time round, but to be honest with you, we weren't comfortable with the proposed closures. The way traffic management has to work in that operating environment, particularly with the rockfall risk, you end up with long closures, and that's a significant severance for the community here, and actually if we can go to the other side trying to get here. So we wanted more work done on how to manage that, but hopefully we'll be able to program that in the summer and get it done, because the state of that road there isn't good, particularly if you're frankly trying to park on that grade.
You can just time it so it's in between council meetings. So. I'm very grateful.
Noted. Right. Okay.
Can I just ask a question there? On the platform that goes over with the rockfall, how much weight can that sustain? I mean, that's heavily loaded, and I saw it one day when it was absolutely bucketing down, and I thought, there's a lot of weight stored in there.
Honestly, not an engineer, don't know the answer. I can have to find out for you, because those sorts of things we'll know. I just don't know for you. No.
Figure of weight on that.
They are staggering pieces of engineering. The whole gorge is. And we've got more work, which I will come to, hopefully further down. But no. It's a really good question. I'll come back. Also to note, because we do tend to do this on a sort of 2-yearly cycle, I would expect beyond things like the total lane kilometres for next year to fall back a little for the West Coast compared to what we completed last year. Partly that's because we were so successful in summer. It will also simply be because we will be prioritising elsewhere, just the nature of things. And that's outside of sort of emergency repairs and those sorts of things, which we will always prioritise doing. So.
James, before we move on from that slide, if you're going to be doing major works through the pass, I understand that Kiwi Rail have got some major works planned.
Yeah, as soon as you started speaking, I thought there was one other thing I needed to mention.
The tunnel, right?
The tunnel, not so much the tunnel. I mean, the tunnel's recently, I mean, it's years now, but in the last few years, undergone a major clean. So that was a very big piece of maintenance on the tunnel. Yes, we need to keep monitoring the tunnel. Well, Kiwi Rail need to keep monitoring the tunnel. We regulate its safety.
Well, I understand they have to change all the sleepers. It's a major piece of work.
Yeah, there is a major piece of work, but I did want to also acknowledge the recent closure we had just further down. It's still severed here, which was a Kiwi Rail level crossing. The level of notice, the length of notice, the time of notice for the community wasn't frankly good, wasn't good enough. We weren't in control of it because it was a Kiwi Rail piece of work, but we do want to do better at that because we recognise that.
How close do you coordinate work?
We're trying our best to coordinate better and better with Kiwi Rail. At a major capital works level, they are fairly understandably focused on both the rebuild in the North Island and substantial capital upgrades in the top half of the North Island. That said, they've got a reasonable program of work in the South Island as well. I work reasonably closely with Mark Heisenbuttel. If you don't have a direct relationship with Mark, if you haven't seen Mark recently, I'm happy to encourage that to be built. Mark manages their relationships in the South Island. They're trying to be better. They have a massive capital program over the next 10 years trying to get the asset back to where it needs to be. And so, yeah. Ongoing dialogue with Kiwi Rail, I think, is just essential for both of us, actually. because our corridors are either next to each other or overlapping. Kamara Junction is one that comes up fairly regularly. But you know, so we just need to work more closely and share. Sorry. Look, let me just do speed quickly. There's a lot of words, you don't need to absorb them all, but Simon, as I said, the trigger for this in part was the letter that came from us, or came from the Director of Land Transport, notifying you of the statutory the dates that are up there in terms of notification for the speed management plan for the district. Let me be clear, those are the default dates. If for some reason it doesn't work, it can't work, there are other things that you need to move around, write back to us, we'll put it to the director and they'll consider a variation. But the process requires a date to be set before that can happen. So if there's any discomfort on that, do let us know.
The question that's going to come from many out there is that consultation period, and responding to that, if you have the plan of no deaths and no serious accidents, the speed determination will have already been made up as far as future planning. So the concept of submitting to or responding is really sort of none of it, isn't it?
So I get the point. Yes, I'm absolutely certain there'll be people who make that point. Let's be clear about time frame here. So road to zero deaths and injuries on our road is, for want of a better way of putting it, an aspirational target. The interim target is a 30% reduction by 2040. But in a speed context, we're all required as RCAs to move toward that environment. You're not required to be there in terms of an appropriate speed on the road for that kind of a target in this next period at all. The things that you must do, the things that people will spot most importantly are speeds around schools, speeds around Mount Eye. Those two are I'd say fairly non-negotiable, but even then you've got actually wiggle room as to whether they're temporary speed limits or the variable and those sorts of things. So it's direction of travel more than hard determination. So there's a engineering calculation underlying it, but you're not required to implement that.
I don't think the speed around schools or Morais are anything that's going to raise any levels as the actual speed that we're going to be placed on the open road.
Yep.
Is going to be what people are wanting to know, what the perceived speed limit or goal is going to be. Can you give us any?
I absolutely can. It's the next slide, but shall I do it?
Yes, Councillor Phelps.
This is really just clarification of acronyms. So I've figured out SMPs.
Oh, sorry, speed management plan.
RCA, sorry.
Road Controlling Authority.
Okay.
You're an RCA, we're an RCA.
And the RC?
Sorry, and regional councils.
Okay.
Sorry, I apologise.
Regional Land Transport Plan? Okay, got that one.
So you do, let's just use the acronyms for a second. You do an SMP.
Yeah.
We will do an SMP. You for your local roles, us for the state highways. We will bundle them up, we'll send them to the regional council. And it gets bundled into the regional land transport plan. And off we go. That's the sort of statutory mechanism for it. So open roads, most importantly. Simon.
Sorry.
No?
There's been a number of occasions, and Carl can attest to this, Carl's in the room now, where we've asked for speed reduction and it's fallen on deaf ears because of no statistics, etc. Where we're quite wanting to manage, particularly some of the real hot spots in our highway network, which will require obviously NGTA to sign that off. So can they be taken into account as part of this?
Absolutely. So I suspect in the past where you've asked for those, particularly if they were state highway, although it'll be true actually on your local road network too, that will have been done mostly under the old rule that we've now seen the back of. So this is all relatively new process, and we have much broader criteria to assess against. But particularly on the open road, let's just think of State Highway 6. Yeah. The old rule was quite prescriptive on look and feel. So if it felt like the open road and looked like the open road, then chances of getting a speed reduction because it was dangerous were very low. So the new rule has given us new criteria aimed at heading in the direction of lowering deaths and serious injuries. On top of that though, and this is why there's a second slide here for us and state highways, unlike local councils for the local roads, the state highway speed management plan that we have to prepare at the same time, we have extra criteria that have been gifted to us by cabinet ministers. So the three things we are allowed to look at, three areas we're allowed to look at in state highway for speed reduction. The top 1% of most dangerous state highways in the country, none of which are in South Island, to be clear, so that criteria doesn't actually affect us. It's all mostly Waikato and Taranaki. Areas where the state highway goes through urban. So just out here, for example, if that, or most often that arises where the speed changes at that urban boundary, right? I've got plenty of those I can think of as examples. And the third one, and this is the one that matters to you, Simon, places where communities want the speed reduced. So if there are those places in Westland District, the state highway, that those niggle points, those sore points, those points that you've long wanted addressed, write to me. We will. Yeah. And that allows us to put it in the pack for consultation, towards the end of this year. That drives the process.
And Charles, have you getting that done at Otero before the celebrations?
I think there's
unlikely, but we can talk about temporary traffic.
I've got Councillor Matchwick and Councillor Neil with questions for you before we.
Me too, as well.
I didn't think I'd get away with this. Yeah.
That's a reason. So we're looking at one of them right here, the bridge.
Yep.
It's one that you guys have been asked before.
Yep.
That we want that 50 kilometre zone moved, and was a flat no. So.
And I suspect under the old rule it would have had to have been a flat no. Under the new rule, let's talk. Okay.
And secondly, I mean, this whole road to zero thing, I thought the government took the foot off the pedal.
And as I say, those criteria now, the 1%, the urban impact in places where the community, that is in very much narrowing our focus and saying these are the only places that you can look at. Great.
So it's not like like the worship was saying, referring to the open speed limit. We're not talking about that. That was a mad speed.
No, I'm not going to put out a state highway speed management plan that drops the speed on state highway 6.
Very pleased to hear.
Carte blanche.
I mean, the whole road to zero thing is like aspiring for a cancer-free society. Not going to happen. It's green madness that should never have crept over. Yeah.
Councillor Neil.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, I liked what I was hearing then, so some of my questions have been answered as regards what the local community wants. I think that's really important. Certainly, yeah, looking at Aotearoa, they're very strong and very clear on what they want to see there. A couple of questions. How many houses are required for an area to count as urban?
I would love to have a clear definition and answer of that for you. I think the answer, honestly, let's wrap that answer up into the third criteria. That's to say, if you've got an area that you consider built up, along the state highway that you want us, just tell us and we'll talk.
Okay. So use the word urban.
Yes,
when we put the case forward.
But we need the dialogue.
And one other question, I was at a road safety meeting recently, or at a previous meeting, we've been told to make sure all near misses are reported, because if they're not reported, people don't know. I was at a road safety meeting, and it appeared that both from the police point of view and from Waka Kotahi, there was no way to report near misses. Can you clarify that, please?
It is in the system that we use to capture deaths and serious injuries, which is the portion of crashes we most focus on, but even the rest. Yeah, there is not an easy way in that crash system to report near misses. It genuinely isn't. And so near misses for me, it's a bugbear too, because if you take a health and safety approach, a near miss is effectively the same thing as the incident occurring, but for luck. So There isn't an easy answer to nemesis at the moment. But having said that, as a councillor, noting them down and having the exchange, even just writing to us or things like that, logging that's great. We build up our knowledge. But no, in a statistical sense, near misses just aren't captured by the system. It's quite frustrating.
I think that's a huge fault of the system, because the whole point is to capture the near misses so that you don't get the serious injuries and deaths. So I'd really like to see a change to that and make it so that it's easy to report it. But yeah, thank you. And I look forward to the new criteria. That sounds promising. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Councillor Phelps.
Through your worship, why have such a top-down system that requires statistics of near misses and all this sort of stuff? If people living in an area want a particular speed limit, why should we sit there on that?
Look, the honest truth is the new rule is much more permissive in that sense. So it doesn't require the hard thresholds or things in order to qualify. We tend to use, in that sense, the crash data more to understand the historical perspective and to help communicate that to the public. We know absolutely, I think the figure something like 60% of crashes occur when there hasn't been a crash before. So in that sense, it's not determinative. We try to take an approach on the state highway that looks at that road type or risk type. So we know if a road looks like this or an intersection looks like this, given other examples like that around the country, and given the crash data that we've built to analyse that, we know what the basic risk is. It doesn't fine in on there have been 3 crashes here in the last 5 years, therefore it scores. It's not as hard as that. It used to be harder, so we've tried to move away from that.
So if you've got a hamlet of 30 or 40 people or something and they want a speed limit lowered, what's the rough time frame for that to actually be?
So process for this. So the new rule moves us into 3-year cycles, right? And so we are coming into the beginning of the new 3-year cycle. So your speed management plan, our speed management plan, we'll consult on it first half of next year, and into the first half of next year. Should be hopefully signed off by the director, let's just say March, April next year. That feeds into the RLTP process that the Regional Transport Committee is conducting through the first half of next year too, and feeds into effectively the same funding cycle for the rest of road transport, so the 24-27 NLTP. So you then have 3 years to implement what has been approved in terms of rules. So the way the rule now works is once it's approved, when you go to implement it, it takes effect, if that makes sense. It doesn't take effect until you implement it. So look, the next 12 months is your sort of regulatory process, and then you've got time to go out and do the signage and do what all we have, depending on which kind of road we're talking about.
So once the 3 years is locked and loaded, is there a process whereby if a new one is identified, or you have to wait for 3 years?
No, there's an exceptions process to do a specific change for a specific place if that comes up out of cycle. Absolutely. With current speed. You can always come back to it. Thank you. So look, I did want to just cover off the government policy statement on land transport, because it guides pretty much everything we can do and everything we do. To be clear, for those of you who have heard me say this before, Waka Kotahi as a Crown agent is required to give effect to this document. This is the current version, issued in 21, so it's a 10-year document, 21-31. In the ordinary course of events, we would expect a new one to be issued now, and we've been very much waiting for a draft to land. It's the Minister's document, so it's written by the Ministry. They talk to us about what they're intending, but we respond to it as opposed to write it. It's not ours. With the events that have occurred in the last month in Wellington, particularly with regard to the former Minister of Transport.
Do you have any shares in any roading company?
I own no shares. It simply hasn't come through the process. And it's not my place to comment on when we might see it, but just to note that we are expecting a change somewhat in the settings within the transport system, and particularly the funding. classes. So the GPS sets effectively the buckets that we can allocate funding to across transport, and they need to be updated if nothing else changes.
So the new minister, just to confirm, is David Parker.
David Parker was made this yesterday. That's correct. So this sits squarely in his.
Just to clarify, sorry, quick question. What's your governing legislation? Is it just the Transport Act?
The Land Transport Management Act governs us, but then the Land Transport Act sets the rules for roads, which we work with you to, but then all sorts of other things like Public Finance Act and everything else. But the primary one is the LTMA 2002. Yeah. So these are the priorities that were draft priorities that were communicated to local government some months ago. Without that visibility of our consultation draft, I can't tell you what they will be, etc., etc. But the big change I wanted to call out, because it'll come to some of the discussion that comes on, is the elevation. In this instance, it's emissions reduction, but this was pre-Gabrielle. I can tell you where it went after that. Is the elevation to have an overarching goal of emissions reduction. That has, in recent months, become responding to climate change, which you can think of in two ways: emissions reduction and resilience. And that's an exceptionally important topic to flag to you guys because of the challenges that exist in this district. Not least of which on the state highway network. So you can see at this instance, resilience sitting down in the green box. That effectively, when Gabrielle, that got added into the overarching goal. That will absolutely affect where and how we can allocate money. There is, of course, an absolute challenge in land transport right now about the total quantum of money available. To put it bluntly, this isn't enough. The Ministry is conducting a funding and financing review to think about how to address that issue. But even within the funding, so Simon, I can see questions going. It's important to understand the criteria under the goals, the targets we would be assessing applications, either our own or yours, against. And I do want to note for you that resilience is absolutely getting stronger as a focus for fairly obvious reasons, given events of the last few years.
So the primary funding is obviously road user charges.
Road user charges, fuel excise duty. Yeah.
Those other elements that sit under Waka Kotahi, Kiwi Rail, electric cars, and cyclists, you don't pay anything.
Correct.
How do you determine the size of the pie that goes towards the?
So we're told the size of the pie in the government policy statement. So we don't determine it, but the amount of money that goes to walking and cycling, to just pick on an activity class that you don't pay road charges using the footpath, or we are given a maximum spend and a minimum spend in a government policy statement. We can't go below that. We can't go above that. So
have you resolved the funding if it's disproportionate? It's an equity issue, isn't it?
It is, but it's not ours to resolve. It's resolved by the Minister and the Ministry. So we will know soon, hopefully, what the 24-27 period looks like in terms of both funding and policy targets, which will enable us to have at elected level, but also officer level, much more refined conversations about what's possible and what's not for the coming triennium. It is a source of frustration that I can't stand here today to tell you what it is, but you've seen what the last month has been like. I wouldn't escape the room without covering a beach special purpose roads. This slide isn't meant to be antagonistic. It is simply meant to note the current policy direction from our board. I would like to say I sat across the aisle from the consultant, Sean, who has been engaged by the Coast. We had a very, very fruitful discussion about the way forward on SPRs. I said, I was on playing with them on Tuesday. And I know my officers have been talking to your officers this week too. Just to say, look, I'm very well aware a conversation needs to occur about the two special purpose roads on the coast. One is yours, one is for the district. And we are not in a position really to simply go forward and hand them over to you. Absent that conversation, it will be an important and detailed one. We need to understand the costs to you. We need to understand the costs to us. We need to understand the community's aspirations. So
there are other special purpose roads on the coast.
yes, but
Conservation land. If the reform goes through and conservation pay rates on their property, does that default to governments to pick it up?
that's a breach of reform far beyond. I wouldn't want to speculate where that would take us. I know it's of interest, but
That's right.
let's see where that goes.
Let's throw it in the public arena.
So James, before you do you have a timeline on when those conversations might start?
Well, at an officer level, they're happening now. Like we've had some conversations over the last week with your officers. So Sean and I caught up and just have agreed that we need to have a conversation very soon to start a process. We are going back to our board to be clear with you about effectively what's left and the known difficulties that we can see with proceeding with this, and just checking their temperature as well. But the next 6 to 9 months will be the key period, in honesty.
Are there other districts having the same conversations, or are we the most active?
You're the most active for me. You're not the only ones for me, but you're the most active of mine. But no, this is an issue around the country. Yeah.
Councillor Fox, and then we'll go to Councillor Neil.
I mean, the problem is people back in the day just built stuff.
Yeah,
Even if it actually was needed or not, stuff just got put there, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's a really good succinct. That right there is the issue.
Well, my brother describes that pioneering generation as tough but stupid. Right? They're very challenging things in very remote environments. And just put infrastructure there that didn't need to be there. But yeah, anyway.
Stupid.
Don't look like fun. And anyway, I've only got one brother, thankfully. Anyway, the roading side of things, like in terms of the Crown's budget, this is back the envelope, but I'm picking a bit over 5-6% of total Crown expenditure. Transport's got a budget of about $10 billion a year, is that right?
I think 12 was the last NLTP, but that was a 3-year cycle for just us. But again, that's not all transport because a whole lot.
I'm just looking at the government's budget for 23. But
Yeah. Well, no, the problem with looking at that is you're not looking at some of the other sources. That
But in terms of places like the coast that have got long, thin roads, I've asked this question before, but we haven't had the benefit of your presence prior. So in terms of, have you got an estimate increased cost at about 2050 in terms of impact on, roading networks from climate change?
2050,
no. I think every other goal's out to 2050 because it's far enough away you can just call it aspirational.
Yeah, no, look, but I can get you some rough workings if you'd like.
Yeah.
The costs, climate change, that's setting aside just simple inflation and cost escalation. The cost escalation is large.
But, there's this conversation around the country about managed retreat and that sort of stuff, like housing and things like that. There probably will be rationalisation, managed retreat from certain aspects of roading networks at either a national level or a regional level and that sort of stuff.
So you're interested in specifically climate change?
Well, just generally speaking.
Yep, no, I can see what we can do.
Councillor Neil.
Thank you, Helen. Apologies if I do repeat what someone else has said, because sometimes it's a bit hard to hear. Just the comment regarding walkers and cyclists, I do think it's a bit simplistic to say that they don't pay towards it, because most walkers and most cyclists also own a car, so they're all paying through their registration. But of course, they don't do nearly as many kilometres per their registration spend. So just, would like that noted. Thanks.
Also worth noted, just in the interest of balance, to say, starting with this current NLTP period, so 21-24, the one we're coming towards the end of, the Crown topped up the NLTP by $2 billion. That was debt funding, but the Crown is increasingly paying in for transport projects over and above what Fed and RUC pay for. That's paid for by general taxation. So that is coming from other sources as well.
And I guess also, if we look after the walkers and cyclists, and I'm thinking of the likes of school children here getting to school, the more we look after them, then the less cars are on the road, and then the less spend has to be spent on it. So it can be a win-win.
That's absolutely right. Yep.
Sorry, have you got more questions, James?
No.
That's okay.
Thank you.
No, just a quick one. The RUCs and the, petrol tax and all that sort of stuff, would it be fair that that pays for the operating cost of the road but not the capex, or is that a way
it's
of...
It's not that simple. It's absolutely about funding capital, but increasingly, and we'll come there, what we call continuous programs, so your maintenance, your operations, your in-flight capital works, there isn't likely to be much left beyond those, or in terms of projected forward revenue versus the cost of that. The cost escalation has been so much. The investment we actually need to make in the asset to bring it back up to scratch is so substantial. There's not a lot left over for new capital works. That's going to have to come straight from the Crown.
And have you guys been struggling a bit with the fact that obviously there's been a discount on the excise side of things? So
yes, although the Crown has topped up that discount directly to us, but it's not always been clear that that's always going to be was always going to be the case, and so it makes managing cash flow quite difficult. There's a question behind you.
I was bringing back to the SPR actually, which is something that's exercising at the moment. I mean, in addition to the financial impacts for you and particularly for those ratepayers and there's wider issues around cultural heritage, economics, and as well as issues around access to dockland and sanctuaries and stuff as well. So I think when we do sit down and talk about it, I think we can appreciate sort of a very rounded view of the impact rather than it's just dollars associated with the roads.
Scott, to be really clear, I don't for a second think it is just about dollars and cents. It's not. I did want to just drill in on network resilience a little, because whilst it has been a frustrating set of conversations often in this room, in other rooms on the coast, elsewhere in the country, about what we are doing about network resilience right now, given what we are able to do with existing funding. As I say, resilience is getting a higher priority within policy settings. I don't have a document I can show you to prove it to you yet, because it hasn't been released, but we completed a major piece of work, which I'll come to in a second, looking at the resilience of the state highway network across the country. It's provided us a really sound foundation, really, for the discussions about how much money is needed to invest in the network to make it more resilient. And the minds of decision makers have only been focused over the last few years at the events, Buller, elsewhere on the coast. Marlborough has just started last Friday a massive consultation exercise with its community over the future state of its networks, and then the various rebuilds in the North Island. So we looking for what we are going to try to achieve in the 24-27 period and beyond, because we have to build our program just like you do and then bid for the money. We will be taking a focus that is primarily starting at the point of maintaining the asset, stopping its decline in the first instance, and where we can, returning its level of service and building resilience back in, informed in terms of where by the program business case on national resilience.
So James, why was the level of maintenance previously carried out on roads allowed to drop, which is, it's going to cost more in the long run?
Well, it's already cost us more in the long run. So the short answer is, again, come back to those government policy statements on land transport. Our levels of funding are dictated to us by, where we can spend money and to what level is dictated to us by the Crown, by ministers. I'm going to get the date possibly wrong. I'm going to say 2009. It was about that time Joyce was the minister. We were instructed effectively to start sweating the asset, and that's what we did. Right. So maintenance levels were held, funding levels were held, and we were doing more patching and repairing rather than full replacements. So you know, rather than digging out the surface and fully replacing the road, you just patch and repair and reseal. And so you just try to push the life of that longer. And you can see the graphs. I know there are some actually in some of your papers today from LGNZ remit point of view. You can see the declining state of the road network over about the last decade. And so you have that, and then you layer on weather events. You know, there's only so much patching you can do, and then you introduce massive amounts of water in particular into it, and suddenly you've just got a rash of potholes everywhere. It's not something that you can actually go out and fix overnight for a bunch of reasons. One, you don't have the money, but two, you don't have the industry capacity either, actually. It will take us probably a decade to, with not guaranteed because that's not the right word, but certainly on investment projected forward for industry to scale back up to be able to do the amount of work that local government and central government has to do in the transport network. So I'll get to questions seriously because I know you do. So the task for the next 3 years for us really is to start to halt the decline, right? Where we can invest as much as we are allowed to in maintenance to hold the levels of service and prepare the ground effectively for that forward improvement. We are also going to be reviewing the maintenance contract model, the NOC model that we use, in order to see if we can't drive better outcomes there, because that model that we operate at the moment was put in place at about the time we were instructed effectively to sweep the asset. That's what it was to do. I might pause there.
Thank you. Through the chair. You mentioned about the infrastructure improvements at Buller and Marlborough, I think.
Yeah, sure.
On the west coast here, like down at Knights Point, that section of road, do you see improvements being spent there at all?
Skip over that slide and I'll go skip over that slide, come back to what I need to. Right, so Knights Point would be, I think that one there, or that one there, it's one of those two.
Push around it, yeah.
Sorry, which one? The red?
That one, the red one.
Yeah, okay, so yes, but I can't tell you when is the short answer. I'll see if I can start filling in some detail for you now. This map is a direct screen grab of the coast, if you can, you know, it's of your district, of the state highway network risks from our program business case. Piece of work where we looked at the full network. Right, this is the current set of risks, really the current major and extreme risks in your district on the state highway network. I'm not telling you anything you don't already anecdotally know, right? The extreme risks are at South Westland, the major risks are on 73. Basically, you know, that's where the biggest risks to the network are. On one side, we will focus as much as we can on maintenance and holding the asset. On the other side, the bid for new work that we will put forward nationally, goes regionally then nationally, a large chunk of that will be resilience work. And for this year, yes, there will be, you'll see it listed differently depending on how we choose to refer to it, but we've got effectively a project from about here all the way through to Wanaka in different chunks, picking up all of those, starting to work out what it is that needs to be done, where it needs to be done. There's a little piece of work that we've got funded in the budget that's just gone for more real-time monitoring for Knights Point, specifically, so that we're aware and we can let users be aware as soon as anything happens, if anything happens, but that's doing nothing more than holding the line. That's not fixing the problem. The investment required to fix the problem needs a straight bid in the forward program. So we'll be bidding for it. Whether we've got enough money in the full system and it can profile enough, I don't know yet, but we'll be asking for it.
So, roughly estimating that?
Well, we want to get started 24, 27. But I can't tell you A, whether it's going to be funded, or B, how long that will then take. We recognise the risk.
Right, we've still got a wee bit.
Yeah, sorry.
I can click through, so.
Yeah, I can bounce around now, so it's really.
was going to talk about the question about the lack of funding for maintenance of the roads, etc. Of course, there's the Auckland factor as well, which is a bit prioritised over the rest of the nation.
Yes. Although, this current period, for example, we are spending as much on maintenance as we're allowed to, and in terms of nominal figures, we've gone to the top of our headroom. So the point from us is we need to make the case to ministers to lift that level, and frankly, find some more money, but to lift that level so that we can spend more. We're not allowed to.
So the question arising from that was all that crazy spending that was done on the light rail options, did that come out of your budgets?
Auckland Light Rail, no, that's Crown funded. So it doesn't come from that bucket of cash. Yeah, it doesn't compete. You could make the case that if they didn't spend it there, they could have spent it here. So there's always an opportunity cost in any spending, sure, but not directly in us in that sense.
Just the two questions there following on from last point, but prior to that, the other side of what I expect as well would be in terms of doing upgrades, there's actually only so much road working you can do at a time, right? So make the road unusable.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. So you've got to have, be live to that. For example, you couldn't shut 73 to completely make it. That's ludicrous. So you've got to have thought to that as well.
And the other one was Knights Point, sorry, it's slightly large scale and possibly above your pay grade, but the
Knights Point is quite large scale.
No, the road that goes along Knights Point there, the erosion's just going to keep chasing it further and further. So if you keep benching the hill, you just keep further destabilising.
I understand. You're right. I'm not an engineer, but as I understand the challenge of Knights Point, actually, we're just going to have to move the road.
Yeah. So my question is, the most likely place to get switched the road when they built it, well, it was finished in '65, I think. But the other route that was looked at was the Haas-Paringa cattle track, which is now a walking track for dock. It's a benched, graded track. It'd probably be the most likely spot you'd put a road. What's the process you go through there with dock if you did actually have to shift?
Oh goodness. We're a long way away from that, I'm afraid.
Why doesn't that come to the...
Yeah, but you're right, we can't keep just sort of hoping Knights Point will pay.
You're fighting the sea.
It's not the only place in the country we're doing that. But
We'll just keep the discussion to the presentation because we are going to be punching on time.
I'm in your hands on resilience. I just wanted to be clear, these are the current known risks on your network. We will be bidding or to start the process, the business case work, investigative jury work, all of that in terms of working on it. There's a few resilience. I said the monitoring on Knights Point. So there's a few pieces on 73 up just west of Otira where we've got where we've got some work we can get on with this next year that was funded through the budget, but it's small stuff. It's all useful, it's all important, but it's not the big stuff like Knights Point that will take the next 3-year cycle to start addressing.
James, how much are you across Franz Joseph Road realignment?
I'm across it as much as one can be. I was expecting to come up, so yep, that was the last one. Yep.
Obviously, it's quite a dynamic environment.
Isn't it?
Yes. Obviously, there's regional council and the councils and DOC and everyone else having active discussions about where it's going.
Yeah. So, do you want me to reiterate the Wakakotahi position for?
Yes, please.
Sure. So our position is, look, we understand the big picture. We don't believe the big picture, future of Franz, future of the river, should be led by what happens to the state highway. If you do that, that's a bit out of orders.
So you'll be an affected party of it.
So in that sense, there is a much bigger conversation to be had, central government, local government, community, master planning, if you want to call it that. I don't care what particular process bucket you want to pour it into. That piece of work has to happen, but it is a community piece of work. It's arguably an all-of-government piece of work. So in the interim, our view is the southern banks probably need to be strengthened, and the flood protection work needs to be done there in the short term. doing that doesn't foreclose your long-term options. It simply buys you time to have the long-term discussion. But sometimes over the last... Sorry? Yeah, well, yeah, in the next year, we want that long-term discussion to happen now. The discussion about the long-term to happen now, but don't do nothing.
Do you see that could be part of the LTP or the
Yes.
discussion?
Sorry, LTP, yes, absolutely. In LTP, the state highway components of that, sure, yes, we'll tag something in there for that. But we don't want people waiting on us to come up with an answer on the state highway to lead out the discussion. That's the wrong way around. We need to put the state highway where it works for the community, not the other way around. So, we're pretty clear that that's understood at government. And
Just get clear. You saying don't do nothing is...
Don't wait. And short term, you can improve the Southern Stockbanks, which buys time so that you can have those. So let's do that. Doing that isn't a way of getting out of doing the big work. The big work still has
way a bit of time.
buys a bit of time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want to carry
No,
on?
look, honestly, I think that was actually my last. Oh no, sorry, I just mentioned some of those resilience. So small lumps of resilience money came through in this last budget to do really small resilience work, taking out dips in places, smoothing some bends in places, dealing with some scaling and some rockfall. But it is only the very beginning. There are few improvements you'll see on the coast with that, with regard to that. But really, I just wanted to make the point that the big focus on resilience should be coming as we look forward into the next program. And there is a very small mirroring bucket of money for local government to bid into at a low cost, low risk level over the next 7 years. So if you've got small, less than $2 million level resilience challenges on your local network, that's a bucket to bid into.
Those discussions around getting cyclists off highways, on roads, obviously we've got a cycle trail here at the moment.
Yep.
We've got quite a bit of that cycle trail on the state highway and on local roads as well. We're obviously financially constrained in terms of what we can do in that space, but quite keen to find a partner to assist us.
Always happy to talk. Always happy to talk. Whether we can actually come to the party with money, that's always a conversation. Let's have a talk. Last issue I wanted to just flag so that we're all clear and it's all there. We are currently consulting consultation closes on the 30th of this month on the very large tranche of proposed bilingual signage. To be clear, because there's occasionally confusion about it in the media, this is not about imposing costs on either ourselves as road control authority or yourselves. This is about mandating new legal signage for when you come to replace signs. There are an awful lot of signs in the consultation package. And if you've got views about how they should or shouldn't work, then please, this month is your chance to feed that process in. We are running the process. We've done the research work behind it, but it isn't our decision. It is a ministerial decision. So we will package up the responses from the public, and there's been a lot, and we will present that up. But to be clear, it's not a Waka decision. They're our rules, but they are signed off by ministers.
So is additional funding being created for this?
No, this is simply changing what signs would be legal. So just pick on the bus stop one, for example. Just, if you are, not that you've got it, or then use the Taupo one, use the 50 Taupo, the entrance sign for a town. If we, because it's our state highway, if we came to replace the ones here, you've already got it. Just Maori name, it doesn't matter. But that would be the point at which we would just simply use a different sign. It's not a new set of signage required, therefore it's not a new cost. It's just in the ordinary course of changing out signage. It's just a different sign you reach for, that's all.
Is there a time frame that the government's got on that actually happening that could actually create a
No, the only timeframe that has been talked about is the need for new signage in parts of the North Island post Gabrielle. So there's a desire to get new signs mandated so that as that work happens, they can be replaced appropriately. But no, beyond that, it's just as and when.
And you don't see that having bilingual signs could create additional problems on the road by way of crashes or whatever?
Not according to the research that we've looked at internationally or here, but we've also been very careful, for example, not to propose, for example, there isn't a bilingual stop sign here. Bilingual stop signs do exist overseas, but it's not in this tranche. We're doing more work with Waikato University around exactly those sorts of risks, because you really do want to be certain about that sort of stuff before you move forward. So it's not all road signs. It's in the area you're probably focusing on. It is probably your orange warning signs, that family of signs. But a lot of them actually are non-lingual. They're pictographic. They don't have words.
Well, that will mean you just set the 50 basically, and you know what to do.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not.
Yeah. It's mostly it's wayfinding stuff. You know. So. Look, that was the last slide from me. Any further questions? Otherwise,
just are you worried about the 50-ton trucks on the road and the 5-axle trailers? Are they wrecking your roads?
Yes.
We are always concerned about roads and making sure that road users are paying their way. In this sense, it's heavy haulage. Is something that both the Crown, in terms of revenue for maintenance, and ourselves are concerned about. Our concern in that sense actually is focused more in on making sure that the correct weights are being used on the road, that there isn't overloading, right? So it's one thing to talk about 50 tonnes, but it's entirely another if actually they're pushing 55. So we are doing our bit on the regulatory side to make sure that we've got good enforcement in place, that we're checking properly, that we know that we're following up on cowboys, because the risks escalate completely much higher as soon as you go overweight. So
a lot of our roads wouldn't be built for that big a tonnage anyway, would they?
They're not.
Are your rucks not just priced accordingly based on whether you've got to give your diesel or a load?
They are, but ruck compliance isn't as strong as you like. Yeah, right. So
last one from me, the 5 bridges between here and Christchurch that are, well, like I said, 20% tax on boat transport because we can't put full loads on.
Yeah.
Is there a
think of that in their resilience kind of stuff. Yeah.
The clip-on on the main Hokitika Bridge here, obviously the bridge was built in 1988.
It's just brand new.
Obviously the clip-on was made for pedestrians.
Yeah.
It's actually made part of the West Coast Wilderness Trail now.
Yep.
So we do have a lot of cyclists on there.
Yes.
And accidents with the cyclists. So do you know if that's been brought up on any future planning to?
I do not. I will. I'm writing it down for you right now.
I think we have had feedback. There may be a clip-on coming.
I did see something recently, there was talk about raising the handrail and potentially making something wider through there.
I say I'll follow up with you.
Thank you. Because we have had some accidents on that.
When you say accident, what kind of accidents? So, bike to bike or bike to pedestrian?
Biking then up there.
Bike to bridge.
Bike to bridge. Oh, that sounds fun.
And the person ended up in the traffic lane.
Yeah, but if some of that's true because you're trying to get pedestrians past cyclists.
Yeah, that's right.
And
So
you hit the rail.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
So we've lost that one.
Yeah. Noted. Yeah.
How do we do the best for our communities and our ratepayers? Obviously, we've got a tiny ratepayer basis, lots of road. Obviously, you manage the important part of it. We've got a really bad brand because tourists, and based on the road's always closed, it's out. And the rest of it, likewise, there's milk that can't get from the dairy factory, or there's mums and dads that don't go to work and kids that don't go to school, and all that sort of stuff. How do we do the best as a council to influence these decisions when clearly we don't necessarily have, the Knights Point issue has been around for longer than I've lived on the West Coast, and like, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be a short term.
It's not, but then I don't think something like Mark's point is really feeding into the sorts of issues that you're flagging. I get that they're all a big amorphous blob at some level of remove. But look, honestly, on the one hand, I'm genuinely standing here saying actually you've got a very good level of service relative to others. And we do our very best, and we can always try to do better, but we do our very best to keep roads open as fast as possible. That said, we know we need to do a better job communicating about closures because of just the nature of the network here. It's hopeless travelling for an hour or two and then finding that the road's closed. You kind of need real-time information at a much greater distance on this network than you do, say, on the East Coast. So, I mean, we can always improve there. I think there are absolutely live discussions to be had. I know you are having discussions at a local level in terms of maintenance and how we're set up to do that on the coast here. I think that's a conversation we should be a part of, and I'm not saying we won't be because I think the right noises are occurring, but I think those discussions are really, really important. But look, honestly, the short answer is the process that we are heading into in terms of the 3-year transport planning cycle is the key one for now, because that's just the way the system works. So ongoing dialogue, both at this level, but through your RTC rep, the conversations that you have as a council about your own program as you head towards the long-term plan, that feeds into the RLTP. I'm happy once we've got a GPS to come back and give you the fine detail on what that incentivises and what that doesn't, what might work and what doesn't. And then, look, your officers working very closely with our officers, that's always going to be the easiest way to smooth the pathway forward. Because we can, despite our best endeavours, we're a big bureaucracy, we can be hard to work with at times, and keeping that staff level relationship alive so that money can flow. Slow motion is good. So that money can flow is often the easiest thing. I watch some councils really fail on that front. It just gums the works up. So
the reactive part of things, I don't think anyone can fault the contractors. The Waiho Bridge 18 days later, 4 bridges replaced, and that's going again. I don't think there's any fault there. I guess it's the proactive stuff, and obviously
so the conversations about resilience will be critical here, right? So where we can build resilience back into your network, the better, because avoiding the closure in the first place is the best thing we can do through that. It's just we can only do so much at so much. So understanding where those are going to be is really important.
The work that was done on Mount Hercules was exceptional.
Yeah.
Held up so well in the last 3 years since the last close.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Right. And you're always welcome, through Simon or not, to just fire questions at me. I can always chase stuff down for you.
Just through the mayor, we'll put a list of speed things together and file a few key points on behalf of council.
I'll listen now through them.
Appreciate that. That's good. That's what I like.
Thank you very much, James, for coming. It's been brilliant. We really appreciate it. Right, can I please have someone move and second a resolve that the presentation from James Hager on that day be received? Thank you, Councillor Phelps and Councillor Pearson. Sorry. Right, so staff reports. We'll move on to the financial performance report, please, from Cody.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors. Through Your Worship, I present the financial reports to May 2023. I'll take it as read, and through Your Worship, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, Councillor Pearson.
I can't find which page it's on now, sorry. Sundry debtors, just I guess prefacing the rates write-off in the next report. We've got $115,000 there, sitting at 90 days plus, well down on this time last year. What's the process for writing off that debt or chasing that debt? Potentially not one for you, Cody, but other ears in the room.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That would be a question for our accounts receivable officer. So I could speak to her and then get back to you on that.
So you talk about
chasing debt.
Yeah.
Well, we have a set procedure, so statement after 30 days, then after 60 days a reminder letter, and then after 90 days a reminder letter and final notice. And then if you get any debt collection. There's all sorts of processes we can go through. If they have a mortgage, then we can add it to the debt of the mortgage. If you want to sell a property into that family, so previously, but under their business into liquidation. So there's all sorts of things we can do there.
So do the water off or anything like that? No.
So genuine debt, money would be recovered at some stage. It might take some time for
If we start taking your debts up to 7 years, if the debt gets over that, then we can't legally go for that debt. So if it's over than that, that's why we've been reducing it, because a lot of the older debt has been written. We use the debt.
Through worship, I think I've asked this before, but I'm going to ask again. If we can have a report, please, from so much for Cody, but if we could have a report on the how the council stands with the being transferred from pensioner housing to destination residence. That's off our books, and then with the potential loss of the Three Waters assets off our books as well. God help us. Goes through, but and what that means to us and the ability to borrow, and like a full report about the impact of that, please.
Just so your worship, so this is obviously a conversation. We haven't settled with the final numbers in terms of what National Transition Unit requires from us, because we're currently in disagreement with some of the calculations they have. So we don't know what that final figure would be. So definitely we'll bring it back to council when we get clarity in terms of various stages of the transition process. I've been invited, and Scott and Leslie are joining me to a meeting in Christchurch on the 5th of July, whereby they are revisiting the transition period time and also the various components of that work that needs to be done. Between now and July 26, we have to determine when go live date is, and they are asking us to look at staggering go live dates between the various 10 entities, which will obviously create further complications around position at end or handover. So it's still, I suppose it's still in transition, to tell the truth, and understanding exactly where it's going to end will be quite challenging. Until we know that date, we can't really work towards it.
We can't really give that information at the moment because we just don't know.
Yeah. And understanding an agreement between us and the NTU in terms of how it's modelled and actually agreed on a debt transfer figure.
Okay, it's the combination of the Three Waters potential loss of all those assets, or most of those assets, and the removal of the pensioner housing asset from the books. What that means to our borrowing capacity.
In terms of,
after we signed up to that local government loan borrowing, it had a different threshold. My understanding is that without those assets, we're close to it. That's what I'll
take that.
We'll take it as it is. Because when we ask these questions, we never get the answer. But a full report. Just what is the state of it?
But that's not actually correct, because when we first knew about this, we did do that information based on what we had at that time. That was the information that we were given. And we had a bit more information at the time, and we did provide that and said we were well within our covenant. Of course, everything has changed since then, and we don't know what the numbers are anymore, so we can't provide that information now. But right at the start, we did provide you with that information, and we said we were fine with our covenant.
For now. That's right. And as I recall from that conversation, the thresholds changed because we went to that local government authority.
No. The covenants are still the same. Covenants are the covenants with the local government funding agency.
I don't know what the covenants means. I'm not.
Well, the thresholds, if you want to call it that.
Right, threshold. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I'm asking for is can we have it in writing so what is the threshold now? What was it previously? What will the effect be with the loss, given the loss of the because at that time we hadn't lost the pension housing, it had been stripped off the books. So without pension housing, without when you find out the three waters, and what does it
But we don't know because we don't know, we haven't done the debt settlement, so we don't know that yet. We don't know what debt will be coming off the books, and we also don't know what the worse off figures are either, so.
I think Councillor Wedgwood's just saying once we do get that.
Yeah, we will
get
provide that
indication
information as soon as we have it, but we just.
Until then, you don't count. But what's the figures are made?
Just Your Worship, as part of my CEO, I'll give a full Three Waters update in terms of exactly where the transition is at, as far as we know, because like I said, there's quite a bit of flux going on in terms of just reforming. The legislation is still yet to be signed off. So it is still in flux, but I'll give it as much as I can an accurate current situation as of July Council meeting.
Is it going to be implemented before the general election or not?
It's going to be.
No.
Sorry?
Three Waters won't be implemented before the general election, they will, so there's another layer of uncertainty over it.
The legislation will be signed off before the election.
It won't be implemented.
It won't be in place, so an incoming government, if they were a different government, could have.
Exactly.
Yes, that's quite right. So, do we have any questions for Cody regarding the financial performance report, please? We can take it back to presentation.
One actually, but talk among yourselves and sort of thing.
No, I'm going to actually look for a seconder and a mover.
I move.
Right.
Oh, sorry, there was unbudgeted capital expenditure. I was just wondering what that was. Page 43. I might not be reading it properly. Forecast $300,000 of forecast unbudgeted capital expenditure. Page 43.
I think will that be discussed in the next report?
Yes.
What is it? Oh, is it coming?
Come in the next report.
The next report.
Yeah, okay. Right, so Councillor Monero, move, can I second a Councillor Davison, or you already does a question?
No.
Seconded, thank you, and resolve that the financial performance report for 31st of May 2023 be received. Thank you very much, Cody, for that. Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Lindley, please, with the rates, write-offs and remissions 2022, 2023, please.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. Through Your Worship, I submit the rates, write-offs and remissions for 2022-23. I'll take it as read, and through Your Worship, I'll take any questions.
I think, yeah, you got this.
Oh, you go. Should be something.
Rates write-offs, bad debt write-offs. It doesn't incorporate non-payment of rates write-offs as well. It's just bad debt.
It's a combination of things. With rates now, we don't really have like bad debts as such, because it either comes from legislation, where, for example, your school housing, rented housing for teachers, you have to give 50% remission, or it comes from our policy, where, for example, with the schools again, they might have X number of PANs, we give them a remission on those. The 7-year write-offs, as Leslie discussed, that is also part of legislation where we cannot take further action on those. So when I prepare the annual report now, I do not do impairment on rates because of all the legislation around it. Bad debts, yes, with other debtors, I look into that. So this is just The other one is our council policy, where we have policies on emissions, on which I did mention that on the schools. That's a council policy. So this is where all this comes from, and also straight out corrections to rates. If, for example, someone's got the wrong rate category, they're charged for Bruce Bay when they're in Fox Glacier, that sort of thing. That's what it comprises.
For that.
So going on from, I guess, that bad debt question, 3.2 on the table, 7th year debt of $11,765. That's rates that haven't been paid via 30, 60, 90-day process, debt collection and everything else.
Yeah.
And we've exhausted every means possible of obtaining that.
Yeah, and a lot of that can be abandoned land too, because we have land in Westland where it's disappearing under rivers. And, it could be a deceased estate, and the people who've inherited don't want to know about it.
Any further questions from members on the report? No, looks like not. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Resolve that the report be received and that council approves the total proposed rates, write-offs and omissions of $282,037, including GST. Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Kirsten, second. Thank you very much. All in favour of that? Right. Okay. That's approved. Thank you very much, Lindy, for that. Remits to local government. Simon, thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Your Worship and Councillors again. I'd like to introduce a report in regards to remits that are requested annually by a local government NZ and are covered through the AGM process. The AGM for LGNZ is I think 26th of July next month. We're requesting that council consider the remits, either support or decline or abstain on those relevant remits, and then give Your Worship the voting power to be representative at the AGM to obviously vote on your behalf. I'll just run through the remits at high level, just so everyone understands, and probably we'll pause at each remit and ask for a vote to make it quite clear. Remit 1, allocation of risk and liability in the building sector. This is obviously, looks at trying to reduce the exposure of local government in terms of ongoing liability for issues in the building, trade or other activities that end up being covered off by ratepayers. The detail is in the remit itself, and I assume everyone has read it, so I'll just leave it there, Your Worship, and see if you want to take any questions from it or have any comments.
Are there any questions on remit 1? So we'll be wanting guidance on this, on the expectation of voting and monitoring regarding these remits. So everybody versed enough to give their advisements of whether they support or not support.
So remit 1 will effectively shift the burden from the council or ratepayer to the home owner or building owner. Would that be the case? Or not?
To either the trade or the owner liability. So generally putting it back more on the trade themselves and having some mechanism under insurance that the trade takes cover.
Yeah.
And there's only a cap. I think it talks about having a cap on council's liability, not the full value. Bear in mind, sorry, councillors, the remits are purely guiding LGNZ in terms of their work priority. It doesn't mean that there's a direct involvement with central government in any way. It basically directs directs LGNZ to act on behalf of local government in these remits, along with their other core strategic projects.
And as it says on the page 50, was it 5, that any council has a BCA function at this impact, so it's relevant to us. So do we have support on this remit? Perhaps we'll go do a show of hands on support of the remit if we can, please. Jane? You there, Jane?
Yeah, sorry, just trying to find the hand raising emoji.
It's just, if you stay with your volume on, your speaker on, so we can just tie you into moving through these if you like.
Yeah.
Do you support the remit, Jane?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all in favour of that one. We support that one. So we'll go on to remit 2.
Remit 2, rates rebate, proposing here to work on easing the burden on low income and fixed income properties, adjust the rebate amount in line with inflation and cost of living, investigate options to make rebates more accessible for residents by implementing an income data sharing process between relevant agencies. Take the rest of it as read.
Of course, it's something that's very relevant to local government. And the rates rebates are an important mechanism to assist low and fixed income ratepayers to pay the annual rates, which of course is the vital statement on there. Can I have a show of hands for support of that or not?
I've got a question on that first.
Sorry.
What's the threshold for low and fixed income? Like, how does someone meet that criteria?
I'm not sure of the assessment at the moment, Elizabeth. Don't know if you give that.
Rates rebate.
What's the assessment for?
I don't know what the criteria is, because it's it's not our criteria.
No.
So we just
yeah.
Household cutting over.
So if you come the income and you can't give them a rebate until we've got retail council rates as well, because we deal with both of them. So I don't know what the actual criteria is.
And I would imagine there'd be a verification of that behind that as well. So
That's what you missed there.
so that's criteria on its own.
We only collect the form.
Can we have a show of hands on that one, please?
How does it work if you've got low income people in a rental property then? So that's just doesn't make any difference to them, it's just if they own it?
If they were to qualify for that, Jane, I would imagine, Patrick here, that they would probably be qualifying for some sort of housing subsidy from MSD anyway.
We're only referring here to landowners or property owners.
Yeah.
Not to renters. This is for rates rebate, so for the people that own the land, the building.
It means that one group is subsidising another group, doesn't it?
Well, it does, because you're effectively, someone could liquidate their asset if they wanted to, but they're choosing to hold on to it and then seeking a rates subsidy to do so. But do you think that's what they right to do or not? That's what's happening in effect.
The taxpayers already subsidised in the course of the MSD and those that are getting the accommodation supplement.
Yeah.
That's a subsidy.
Yeah. That's quite right.
It doesn't come off our rate. We get paid.
Yes.
Oh, what, MSD transfers money to the council to a rates, that's right.
Just a show of hands.
Jane?
Yeah.
No, it's still,
Obviously, this hot topic, considering the last conversation, roading and transport maintenance funding, obviously, to get LGNZ to advocate for an improved or an enhanced maintenance program for our local roads. Have to take the report as read.
Yes, through your worship, could we ask in supporting that, that it extend to special purpose roads and advocate for that?
Gotcha.
This remit itself is just specific to maintenance, so we're just going to vote on, we're not modifying the remit, either supporting or not supporting.
Show of hands on this, please. Jane?
Yeah. There's an awful whistle coming through. Can you guys hear that?
No.
Okay, not sure what it is.
Sorry,
we can turn off the heat pump.
I'm just pausing there, obviously noting the point Paul's raised. What's the process? Obviously, half of these were nominated by district council, or most of them were. How's the process for us to then say, as a collective of councils that are facing the special purpose road issue, to then go and get LGT to work on behalf of the 7 or
So
9
you would
councils?
need to put a remit in before now.
Yeah. What is that, an annual process before you AG?
Annual process.
Have we missed a drop not doing that for this round?
I sent it out quite some time ago, asked the council to consider anything and nothing came back.
Yeah, so on that, it's the council has to come up in terms of what it is, such as the SPR, and then generally beforehand, you at least seek support of fellow councils.
Need 5 in total. Yeah.
And then that will then go forward, supported by the zone through to all councils to then come back in general, so that by the time the respective mayors then go to the actual conference, there's already some direction in terms of how they do it.
Unfortunately, that's part of the problem with incoming councils and not necessarily having your head around the whole, everything that we're involved with. But next time we will be on the button.
Thank you. These are just agreements to local government,
Yes, they are.
just so that they can lobby.
Yes.
It doesn't mean diddly squat to the government, to be honest.
No, but it's a process we have to go through.
Item 4, local election accessibility. Obviously, enabling councillors to make greater use of co-chair to arrange for standing committees, joint committees.
No, wheelchair access, local election accessibility. Number 4.
Oh, sorry, that one on the report. So this is obviously advocating for central government to make local government accounts eligible for the election access fund. So there's an election access fund which supports disabilities when you will put your hand up for central government, but not for local government. So we're looking to be able to expand that to local government to enable disabled people wanting to be part of local government. So they get a support to be able to do so.
This has been proposed by Whangarei District Council. Everybody in favour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Ability for co-chairing informal meetings. Holding said explores and promotes options that enable councils to make greater use of co-chair arrangements for various committees.
It's trying to clarify the arrangements that councils have or can adopt to enable them to manage processes better, isn't it?
It's also giving the experience of someone sitting beside an experienced chair to also co-chair, so sort of a buddy system approach. More to do with committees, not to do with council operating and council meetings.
And I think that would be that came in from Northland. I think that's relative to that they have a lot of their not like borough community boards, which is probably what it's more aligned to. So it's important to them, and I think it's important to support them on that. If it enables them to act in a better manner and process things on a more refined angle, then yeah. So everybody in support of that? Jane?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Number 6, parking infringement penalties. Currently this is set by government legislation, and the request here is that this becomes a local government fee or charge rather than set by legislation. This also includes primarily car towing, which becomes a burden on the ratepayer because it's not fully funded.
That's not proposed by Wayne Brown.
Whangarei. So this is brought about because the council is unable to recover the actual public land towing costs from the vehicle owner. So this sort of gives that protection as a cost recovery. Yeah, it allows for that. And I mean, down the track, who's to say we're not, going to face the same thing?
Councillor Bird's back on that.
So everybody in favour of that, supportive of that? Yep. Jane?
Yes. Yes.
Number 7, rural and regional public transport. Obviously ensuring that there is available public transport for rural and regional areas, not just metro, and trying to get some funding support for that. Are you making sure that intercity link don't abandon?
Yes, I think that's relevant to us. We've been through that before. Right, everybody supportive of that? Jane?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right.
Number 8, I alluded to this in the earlier workshop this morning, establishing a resolution service that LGNZ investigates the creation of an LGNZ independent national process to handle complaints or concerns, ensuring fairness, protection and accountability in local government. Basically a support network that can be commissioned to look at issues within councils to help them resolve issues.
Issues primarily around misconduct by members.
In there.
So,
No.
right, is everybody in agreement with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, thanks, Jane. Thank you.
Number 9, earthquake prone buildings. Currently there's a requirement, I think it's July 27, to obviously resolve earthquake prone buildings and the challenge, particularly in rural communities, that those on the main thoroughfare through towns may be neglected, and asking support to revisit the end date. Based on 7 years.
Commissioner first. Sorry.
So if this is to give more flexibility to councils, then I'm all for it.
Councils and private landowners as well.
Okay, because at the moment there's inflexibility, isn't there?
Yep.
I fear for some years. But if you want to look at because of exactly this inflexible rule.
It's effectively just an admission that property owners can't actually afford to do the earthquake, basically.
Well, it gives a flexibility to time and process to work through these things. So everybody in agreement to that?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. 10's KiwiSaver.
Number 10, KiwiSaver contributions for elected members. I don't know if you're all conflicted when you sign this or not. Obviously, central government or politicians in central government are allowed to get KiwiSaver contributions for as part of their package. This is recommending that elected members also get the same.
Which of course you cannot
I oppose this purely for the reason that insofar as it doesn't actually mean that the ratepayers are giving us any more money, it's useless because we can all make voluntary contributions as often as we like. But if it means that there's an increase because the council or the ratepayers topping it up, we're just basically giving ourselves a pay rise if we vote for this one. So.
Well, I assume it is where there'll be an unless it's covered, it'll be an impact on rates if you add this on top of it.
That's what I mean. If it doesn't create additional cost, then all it is just taking that bit of our paycheck that we can put in ourselves anyway. And if it does, it's falling on the ratepayer. Yeah. So we're only giving ourselves a pay rise if we go for this.
I mean, yeah, but it was a full-time job being councillor, then probably yes, but it's, you know, it's a...
Can I only draw a position by someone that's
councils are identified within the report.
Yep.
Support from Queensland.
So, as far as support goes, non-support goes, against. 4.
I feel like it also came up in the review, the government review.
The remuneration review?
Yeah, I think that's in there as well. So.
Not surprising that a local government review should promote it.
Jane?
I'll abstain, sorry, I can't hear the discussion on that one.
Oh, sorry, the majority of them are against it. It's 5-1.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yep, so it's 6-1, Gary. Stephen, I won't include your vote on that, but seeing you've just come into that.
And the final conversation is to do with Audit New Zealand fees. As discussed this morning, their remit has been widened and widened and widened over the years. Just to look at LGNZ asking to revisit the scope of reporting and auditing on councils. The cost of the increase of audit over time has increased accordingly. So this is just a request for that as a piece of work that LGNZ would conduct on our behalf.
Okay, so let's Audit New Zealand, please. What's everybody's thoughts on that?
100%. As long as it doesn't take away any transparency.
Right, is everybody support that? Support?
I'll go with the majority. I can't hear, sorry.
Right, they're supporting that remit, Jane, on the Audit New Zealand.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you. Stephen, I'm not sure whether you're familiar with that, whether you've had time to draw brief to pass on.
No, I support that.
Yes, thank you.
It still gives us the freedom to set our own auditing requirements, doesn't it? So if we want to have a high threshold, we can.
Okay.
That's the end of the remits, Your Worship.
Thank you very much for that, Simon. So I'm presuming you're all familiar with paragraph 1 on there. The purpose of this report is to seek endorsement of suitable local government New Zealand remits. The remits must have formal support from at least one zone or seat group meeting or 5 councils prior to them being submitted in order for the proposal to assess support and achieve clarity about the ambit of the proposal. So it's got a process to go through before it, gains some teeth or some legs, but this is the first step. So can I have a mover and seconder, please, that resolve that the report be received? Thank you, Councillor Phelps. Councillor Burden, thank you very much. And with that, also that council support the endorsement of the remits as determined.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Jane. Council endorse myself, the Mayor, as presiding delegate to vote at the LGNZ Annual General Meeting in 2023 on behalf of Western District Council. All in favour to those please?
Aye.
Thank you, carried. Thank you everybody for that. Right, we've got time for the update on the capital works projects. You leaving us or you?
No. I saw Stephen's jacket.
Thanks, Scott, very much.
I'll take the report as read. Before I take questions, I think there are a couple that came out of financial that needed some clarification on. One I'll touch on, which is the reference to $249,000 spent in relation to community halls. That's actually an own-coding issue. So that was put down during the make sure that's been tackled and that's been rectified. The other area that we've got is around transportation and some significant costs we've got associated with remedying emergency works this year. So councillors will be aware that any significant weather events that lead to expenditure over $100,000 means that we get additional funding through from Wakatāhi at the fire rate, which is 62%. And we've got some claims going through where we've actually spent the money at the moment, but we haven't actually yet claimed it back. But also within that, we have $150,000 budget, which is set within the NCLP for what you would describe as minor emergency works, which are works under $50,000. And unfortunately this year we've had a lot of minor weather events. So we're showing about a $356,000 expenditure against the $150,000 budget, which we're working through at the moment as well. In addition to that, I've got a meeting with Glenn to be working through budget first plans, and we've got another meeting on Wednesday, which is in terms of the detail within the report, the figures are basically showing capital projects that are estimated at over £200,000. We had a discussion internally, and the view was that we got too low down. A lot of things for people to look at, not a huge amount of value. I'm happy to take questions.
Could you hear all that, Jane? Francois?
Yeah, I saw.
A little bit, just quietly. Right.
No, it was hard to hear that, but I have read it.
Steve.
Just can you just clarify that Big Street realignment? I just still puzzled with it's a Freewater stormwater project or something else.
It's the one that's got up to $1 million, it's stormwater.
It's 370.
Yeah, no, it's that 370 was the original budget for a project that, when we got the pricing through, came out at $1 million. And when we looked at it, we said, can't afford that. The recommendation came out to say, well, what can you do? And that's why we ended up with the very small amount of expenditure. But that's the one that's doing it.
So it just looks like it's so.
Yeah. That's what we're going to do.
Through worship, the Casquet toilet project, where are we actually at with that? We've been hearing that we're waiting for building consent for quite a considerable amount of time. Has that progressed or what?
We're still waiting for the building consent. We're told it's imminent. But yes, and I agree with you, it's taking a very long time.
Have we got any risk of costs going up in the interim reporting? It's fixed.
I would need to come back to you on that.
Councillor Gay, oh, sorry, we'll get there. Councillor Mayor.
What about the Wairaa Hall? Been going on for quite a while.
Yes.
Councillor Fox.
Just a question in terms of the Casquet playground and the racecourse development. Those aren't foregone conclusions in the spending yet, but they're showing in there as in progress. Just wondering why that's the case.
Well, Casquet playground, through the working group, we have been authorised to go out and seek tenders for effectively a design and build. So that is moving through, and the funding for that. In terms of the racecourse, no, you're absolutely right. The works that we've done so far on the racecourse is the prep work, and we need to do everything we want.
The Casquet playground will still be coming to a full council meeting.
Yes, yeah, we haven't. We haven't
To bring something to council, a scope to council to work direct on. So it's not signed off. This is just the work to bring something to council to vote on and just make a decision on.
Yeah, it'll go through a full tendering process. Sorry, I wasn't sure.
Scott, just following up on that racecourse development question, there's 290 or just shy of $290,000 worth of expense either committed to or already spent. Obviously, if that goes ahead, do we see that falling within that $3.6 million grant? Or is it on the outside?
Yes, you can include that within the grant. But there was also initially a budget set for doing track work for it. So if that fails, if council elects not to move ahead, then that money covers the cost within the original budget.
What has that money been spent on?
It will have been spent on all the preparation so far for it, so it will have been looking at initial scoping documents, the GS out with the planning.
Can you repeat that, please, Scott?
Yes, it will have picked up the geotech work, the ground prep work, and the initial planning, the consultation, sorry, not the engagements that we've been doing, and any other work that's around that. Also some legal advice that we've taken.
Total Bridge, is that on hold because we can't progress the Total Bridge, or what's the story there?
So we are still going through and getting engineering assessment completed on the bridge, because we need to know what our liability is. So the visual inspections have been done. The report has now been collated. We should see that next 3 or 4 weeks.
Thank you.
The Carnegie building and its practical completion and handover scheduled for the 18th of July. What level of certainty or comfort do we have that that date's going to be met versus the previous round of slides and data?
I would like to be able to say it's the 18th of July, but given previous scenarios where it's slipped, I would treat that with a degree of caution. I have to say, on a personal level, I am highly disappointed at the amount of time the project has taken to complete. Although when it's done, it will look good, and it will be what was set out. But from my perspective, it has taken far, far too long to get to where we are.
Thank you. Councillor
Just further to that, what sort of steps are we going to put in place to make sure this sort of stuff does not happen?
The situation that we found ourselves with the unique, and there were a number of factors that are involved in that. It ranged from the impact of COVID to things that we found at the site when we were dealing with unforeseen circumstances. A particular area that we had a difficulty with is around additional work that was outside the scope of the original contract that was necessary to finish. So it was very difficult to hold contractors to account in the main contract for what effectively the variations. We have been extremely robust in terms of the financial impacts with this, in terms of ensuring that council doesn't have to pay any additional costs associated with the delays in dealing with it. One of the other factors that kicked into it, and I think we discussed at one of the previous council meetings, was some works that had been done that turned out to be not done correctly and had to be redone. Again, at no expense to council, but that has again delayed the project. Conversations that I had with the contractors towards the end of the summer, where I said, now is the time to get all this external work done before the bad weather comes, and of course it slipped, and now the bad weather's come. But we are at the very, very, very tail end of this now. As usual with any contract, you project manage them, you have penalty clauses in contracts where appropriate, and you enforce. And that balance to be struck between being very, very dogmatic in your enforcement and spoiling the relationship with contractors. It is quite a delicate balance.
Councillor Phelps.
Are you facing?
I guess a supplementary question to my first one, moving down a project to the swimming pool. In the project report, we're saying work's expected to take up to 4 months, and then work will continue through April 2024, but there'll be pool usage in there. The level of confidence that pool users will be back in there 4 months after it closed to use it.
That is our expectation at the moment, subject to whatever we find on the site. So, for example, on Monday this week, we found there were some issues around the soil, the immediate area soil as well, where it is more fluid than we expected it to be. So we've had to go back and get some engineering responses on how to deal with that. So we're confident within the remit of what was going on in circumstances.
Councillor Phelps.
We talk about unforeseen circumstances. Is that not a symptom of desperation on our part as to the complexity of these projects?
What you try to do is you put in contingencies within your timetable to allow for stuff. And sometimes there are things that go that fall outside that.
Any further questions for Scott? Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, just through the chair then, you've talked about this before, Scott, and that was the Beach Street realignment stuff there. What's the WSP report?
It was a report commissioned to look at what we could actually do to remedy the issues. So I don't know what the USP stands for, so engineering company that works on. So they came to report on it, and it's going back to the
Councillor Connect.
Is that report available for us to view?
Yeah, Simon nodding. Yeah, don't see why not.
Just sorry, through the chair, just in terms of Carnegie, are we still within budget?
We're still within the budget that we were talking about last time we had the meeting.
Revised budget.
Yeah, the one you did, that budget.
Yeah, but, yep.
Okay, does anybody have anything further for Scott?
Could I just take the opportunity to introduce and answer everybody? I don't know whether people know. Yeah. Jan's joined us about 6 weeks ago, that long. And Jan's got a very strong background. I don't want to call him Scott.
No.
He's a very, very strong background in project management and also retail shopping centres. So Jan's going to be taking an interest in projects that we've got going on in the building related matters. So he's come here today to see what it's like. So anyway, welcome.
Thanks, Jan. Thank you.
Great capability to have around the building.
Yes, very much so. Yes. Right, can I have a mover and seconder, please, that resolve that the report be received, please? Councillor Kesson, Councillor Burden, thank you very much. Thank you, Scott, for that. That's everybody's in favour of receiving that. So what we will do now, being that it's 3:10, and we're not allowed to sit for more than 2 hours, can I have somebody move and second, please, that we resolve that the meeting extends beyond 2 hours in accordance with standing orders? Councillor Beard, Councillor Phelps, thank you very much. Everybody's in favour of that. Thank you. And Joanne, I'm sorry, but can we put you back to afternoon tea?
Yes, absolutely. How long, what time do you think that'll be?
We've got a citizens ceremony now, and then we break for afternoon tea, so. Would be that? Approximately 3:45, but what we can do is we can flick you a quick message if it's looking like being any earlier than that.
Okay, that'd be fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Joanne, for being so understanding with that. We greatly appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you. So with that, then we will delay Joanne and her report, Wilson Holdings, till after afternoon tea. And is everybody here for the citizens ceremony? Think so? Yeah, that wasn't quite right, was it? So what we might do is we will start with the ceremony 5 minutes earlier if everybody's here and happy to do so. Oh, okay, we'll leave some room. Shuffling, restyling. Poetry. Oh.
it's going to work. We can't do anything in this small chat.
Right, so we'll get things underway. So a very warm welcome to everyone here today, including families and supporters of our new citizens to the Western District. This is your council and our senior management staff. I'm Mayor Helen, my Deputy Mayor Ashley Casson, and your respective councillors at the table here. And one at the very back there, he just likes to hide away. So the order of proceedings today is we're going to listen to a short video and welcome from the Governor-General, Her Excellency the Right Honourable Cindy Cairo, and then Honourable Barbara Edmonds, who's the Minister of Internal Affairs. So we'll listen to that, and then we'll sing the National Anthem of New Zealand. And after this, we'll then call you forward as the new citizens to take your oath or affirmation of allegiance, and you'll receive your certificates and so I hope you've got shopping bags for you to carry it on home. And we've got the opportunity, which I will do as we go, if any of you want to have your own photos, that's all fine for afterwards. And we'll dial do a photo between each presentation as well, so you're catching things at a time. So if everybody's quite happy with that, we will get things underway first and foremost with the video and the welcome, which I'm not sure.
Koutou katoa. Nau mai hara mai ki runga I tēnei whenua. Welcome to Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. As Governor-General, I represent His Majesty King Charles III, the King of New Zealand. On His Majesty's behalf, and on behalf of all fellow citizens, I'm delighted to extend a warm welcome to you, our newest New Zealanders. All New Zealanders have journeyed here from other lands at some time. We understand what it means to leave a familiar world behind and to look for opportunities somewhere new. When you become a citizen of Aotearoa, New Zealand, you will join one of the most diverse populations in the world. Past migrants have played a central role in shaping our country for the better. Your skills, commitment, and cultural traditions will help shape the future direction of our communities and our nation. You will enjoy the same rights and take on the same responsibilities as your fellow New Zealanders. Our history will become part of your history, and your future will become part of our future. Thank you for choosing to make Aotearoa, New Zealand your home. I wish you and your families every success in this next stage of your life journey. He aha te mea nui o te ao. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the most important thing in the world? It is people. It is people. it is people. No mai, welcome.
Kia ora. I'm Barbara Edmonds, the Minister of Internal Affairs. Today I'm here at the National Library, home of He Tohu exhibition. The exhibition is home to the iconic constitutional documents that have shaped New Zealand, including Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which is the partnership your new home country, Aotearoa New Zealand, is built on. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the government and people of New Zealand to welcome you as a citizen, as a New Zealander in every sense of the word. Your decision to become a citizen reflects a lifelong commitment to our country. In turn, it can be passed on to a future generation, wherever they are born. Some have been here for many generations, and some, like you, are new. But we are all New Zealanders, Kiwis. Congratulations. Until today, New Zealand was your home. Now it is also your country.
If we can ask you all to rise for the national anthem, please.
E o
first citizens at the ceremony, Julianne Pfeiffer, please, whose current nationality is Germany, and she's taking the oath.
I, Julianne Pfeiffer, swear that I will be faithful and true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, King of New Zealand, his heirs and successors according to law, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of New Zealand and fulfill my duties as a New Zealand citizen. So help me God. Thank you.
Cassandra Mealy, please. So Australia, currently is Australian nationality, so that's one for us. And you'll take any information, so if you'd like to just keep your name on there.
I, Cassandra Mealy, affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, King of New Zealand, his heirs and successors according to law, and that I faithfully observe the laws of New Zealand and fulfill my duties as a New Zealand citizen.
Now we have, and my apologies if I've got the pronunciation wrong, Annalise Annalise from South Africa, and taking the oath today.
I, Annalise Hills, swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty the King Charles III, King of New Zealand, his heirs and successors according to law, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of New Zealand and fulfill my duties as a New Zealand citizen. So help me God.
Something with the waist. And next we have Frederick Gerhardus, who's from Namibia.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I, Frederick Gerhardus, put this swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, King of New Zealand, his heirs and his successors according to law, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of New Zealand and fulfill my duties as a New Zealand citizen. So help me God.
Frederick. And welcome. And next we have Wendy Penguin, please, from the Philippines.
I, Wendy P. Pangan, swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, King of New Zealand, his heirs and successors according to law, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of New Zealand and fulfill my duties as a New Zealand citizen. So help me God.
Sweetheart. Oh, there you go. There you go. Juliana, you can take it. Dance, we twirl. Now we've got Mark Pangan, please.
I, Mark Anthony Pangan, swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, King of New Zealand, his heirs and successors according to law, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of New Zealand and fulfill my duties as a New Zealand citizen. So help me God.
Mark. She's got the hang of it now. Thank you. And last but not least for the day, we have Andrew Pangan, who's 16, the youngest one for today. Here, sweetheart. There you go, darling.
I, Andrea, swear that I will be faithful and bear true to His Majesty, King of New Zealand, his heirs and successors according to law, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of New Zealand. So help me God.
Now that concludes that part of the ceremony, but Guy's quite happy to take some photos of our new citizens with their support team, family, or whoever you've got here today. And then we welcome you to join us for afternoon tea in the room through here. We'd like to, and your little ones, more than welcome to entertain us. So, does anybody want a photo taken? Do I take the photo? Yeah. Because we've still got a bit to crack on through. Everybody can just get compliant as we progress. So we'll reconvene the meeting at 3:50 and move straight into Joanne Conroy's report from Western Holdings regarding the SOI. Welcome, Joanne. It's all yours, and Francois back, Joanne? No, okay. It's all yours, Joanne. We'll throw it over to you.
Sorry, that's not working.
Oh.
Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, headphones are not working for some reason. So apologies for not being there in person. We've had fog every day here this week, and my flight got cancelled, which is not surprising, seeing every flight in the morning for the last 4 or 5 days has been cancelled. So out of my control. So hopefully you have read the report. This is following on from February when we were last in front of you, presenting the draft statement of intent for, it's ready for next year, but we do carry it on for the following 2 years as well. Since that time, we've made a few tweaks to it. So as requested. We made some minor changes to dates and some of the duplication, particularly in the performance measures. And we've added a new section 11 just to tidy up or give you some assurance around that capital expenditure, that if we are doing significant capital expenditure, we will be bringing it to the council for consideration along with a business plan. And then apart from that, a couple of words. So the only other significant change is that the financial forecasts have changed quite a bit from the draft. And the reason for that is primarily because Westroads lost that Greymouth District Council contract. So they had to redo all of their budgets for the coming 3 years. So they're down slightly from what was originally presented. So are there any questions?
Joanne, I've had a discussion with Simon and Leslie on this at TC. Just regarding reporting on the assets that we own.
Yes.
And whether we can have a quarterly report on those. I'm not talking about the assets that are now under the ownership of Destination West. I'm talking about the assets that are owned by us, managed by them. And
Yes, I had a chat with Simon about that, and I felt that it was a contract that was, and look, you know, if you need it through us, that's fine, but it's actually a contract between council and Destination Westland, and it will have some performance measures in it. And I think it's up for renewal and updating anyway. But in my opinion, the best way to do that would be through the contract, because if you put some KPIs in there around the assets, then, you know, basically they'll report against those KPIs as part of that contracting process. So just throwing that at you as an option, and that would be via the chief executive rather than through, you know, it's not really governance, it's more management type issues. So
well, it is. It's managing our assets. So, yes. and I see that as being different to Westroads because our asset team report to us on those assets that we own, and that Westroads manages, and it's probably the one bit of information that we only get yearly or 6 monthly that we probably need to have our heads around a little bit more regularly than what we do. So, but I didn't know the report was due to the contract was due to expire, so that changes it too.
Just to clarify, the contract is a management contract between Western District Council and Destination Westland. Obviously, there was upgraded. It's not due to expire. It was updated in 2018. What I've discussed with the Chief Executive of Destination Westland is that they will provide a report to myself, which I will present as part of the CE's report quarterly, just around the components that they manage on our behalf. And that'll be a mechanism to feed back to council.
Because there's a lot of stuff within that that's tied up with the review we're doing at the moment too. So to me, it would just give a bit more knowledge and insight.
So given that Westroads has recast their figures, it's a little bit surprising that in the financial forecasts, the administration expenses for holdings are forecast to increase by 900,000.
Yeah, so what you've got to understand is when they use that word administrative, and it's very misleading, I don't know why they don't change it, that includes all of the expenses. So that'll include fuel, wages, you know, all the costs of running the business, apart from the cost of sales, go into that administration bucket. So it is a bit deceptive. It's not actually it's not administration as in running the office. It's all the other costs. So obviously with the world the way it is, it's not surprising that those costs have gone up.
About $900,000.
I don't have the detail, but these are budgets, and the budgets will be based to some extent on the actuals, which you will see in a couple of months.
And at the same time, the dividends are forecast to increase by 50,000.
Well, that's good, isn't it?
I see where they've got this income coming.
Well, when the administration or the expense costs are going up $900,000, the dividends are going up by a whole $50,000. It seems a little bit. What's the point?
So when you say going up, you mean from the draft to now, or what were you?
No, I'm talking about the financial forecasts that you've included here. The 2023-24 year, the group dividend is 270, and and it's going up into 2025-26 to 325.
Yep. So is the income. So revenue is increasing 29 million, 31 million, 34 million. So income is going up, expenses are going up, and the dividend is going up.
So if I can ask Joanne, if the income's going up, where's that coming from if West Roads has lost that contract with Great District Council?
I'm sorry, I don't actually know the details of how they put that together. And keep in mind, this is the consolidated figures, so that Destination West would also be in there. But all businesses are planning to grow, and they'll base it on some formula they have. It also, to some extent, some of the contracts will have an inflation clause in them as well. So as the expenses go up, so will the income, where that is possible. So some of those contracts will allow that. So I mean, they're planning for growth, and that is a wise thing in a business.
Yeah,
thank you, Your Worship. Just a question or two ago, you said you don't know why they do that. It's a bit misleading in terms of the administrative expenses. When you say they, do you mean the staff or the accountants, or who are they?
The accountants. So it's an accounting treatment that I'm not an accountant, so I'm not particularly familiar with it, but it has been done for years, and it always raises this question every time we present it.
So if it always raises this question, would it be particularly difficult to just have perhaps a number next to it as a footnote or something that could, advise the otherwise less learned person to the bottom of the page, so that it might give a better explanation for anyone that actually wants to understand it?
Yeah, yep, you're quite right. And I think I'm pretty sure it does in the annual report. So looking back, when you get that, but I think that because it keeps coming up, you're quite right, we need to put a footnote with it. Good idea.
Joe, just a question, maybe something someone might come back to us on. The revenue over those 3 years projected there goes up 14% from year one. So if we're talking CPI at say 7%, that's not necessarily any growth in revenue outside of matching CPI. Are they predicting growth, or are they just mapping to match CPI?
So in doing the budgets, there will be growth, and they will be aware of when their contracts are due for renewal, and obviously will always be assuming that they will renew them. They always try to renew them. There's any budget is your best estimate on the day. So that's an estimate based on what they know now. I wouldn't be surprised if we come back to you next year and those figures have changed for 24-25 and 25-26 quite significantly, because obviously another year down the track, more, and your estimates are going to be, the closer you are to the date, the more you know, and the more accurate your estimates will be.
Just another question, and I'm sure this is not the first year that this has been in here, but just looking under number 4, governance approach, the 2 first bullet points, achieve objectives, ... section 3, and good employer in accordance with the Local Government Act, those are quite tangible, whereas I can't actually see anything that defines what it would mean to exhibit a sense of social responsibility, or for that matter to exhibit a sense of environmental responsibility. I would hope that we were lawfully compliant and everything else, but to me that just looks a bit like fluff, and it doesn't actually need to be in there.
So this is under, section 3, did you say? Objectives of the company.
4 means, right.
Bullet points 3 and 4.
Yep. So we do include these kinds of things in our strategies and our policies. So, you know, in our meeting, which is next week, because we're out of sync with you guys, ours is on the last Thursday of the month, Friday, we are considering an environmental policy. So, you know, when you talk about exhibits of social responsibility and sense of environmental responsibility, we can back that up with our policies and with our strategy. You know, it isn't just fluff. We do, and to be fair, the auditors review everything we put in there to make sure that we aren't just making things up, that we actually have some robust actions in the back that support what we're saying. As a holdings company, of course, we have a very limited activity. The main way we can actually put some of these actions into place is by having the subsidiary companies do something about them.
Anybody have any further questions for Joanne? No? Or can I have someone please move and second the resolve that A, the report be received, and B, that council approve the Western Holdings Limited 2023 to 2026 statement of intent as presented, please. Will we move and second? Councillor? No? Sorry. No? Burden, Councillor Burden, sorry, I got distracted that line. Do I have a seconder to that, please?
Yeah, I'll second.
Councillor Davison, thank you. All in favour?
Right.
Show of hands, all in favour, please. All opposed? Sorry, what your vote was?
I moved it.
You moved it? Yeah. Move 3.
Abstain as well.
1. You?
I'll move.
Yes, 1, 2, 3. Vote for it. 1, 2, 4. Abstain.
I vote against.
Vote against. Sorry, can we just, we've got 1, 2, 3 in support, abstain or against? Abstain first. Abstain. 1, 2, 3. Against. Do we have Jane on board? We don't? No.
Just to highlight, councillors, this makes us statutory non-compliant for not receiving this report.
Well, that's not something to
be proud of. No.
So what do we do?
So those that abstain can, I suggest, provide feedback as to what needs to change before, rather than just abstaining. If there's anything that needs substantial change, I'd like to support Joanne in understanding what that actually is.
Can we just make this clear again? We're now voting against it, but you did have a workshop which met the statutory deadlines and they followed the process to the law. That was your opportunity to ask them. You had a month after that to give them feedback and ask them to make changes to that statement of intent. If you didn't do that, you really forfeit that right now. This should just be an administrative process at this point in time.
The only right technically to sustain is either on an error of fact which has already been covered, or you have a vested interest, in which case there should have been a declared conflict of interest for this paper at the beginning of the meeting.
Through your worship, I think it's not entirely fair. I mean, we did ask very robust questions when it came to the council. So,
but we also did put in things that we wanted to see amended and taken on board, and we had a fair chance of editing what was put forward, and a very open chance to and discussions with Joanne about what we wanted to see in the statement of intent.
And that stuff that we asked was being done.
Yes, it has. So as far as time goes, really, if there was any other concerns, they should have been raised before now. So as far as the abstention goes, that then should be removed.
Well, it's
On the grounds there are no grounds for abstaining from voting.
There may be members that have some conflict in terms of anything to do with budgets, in which case it's justified, but if it's really in the sense that people chose not to engage and give feedback when it was asked, then that really falls back on us as individuals for not engaging at the process by the due date, which was requested to be relied on.
No, we're not going to use this.
Happy to be somewhat quiet as well and move to a yes then.
Okay, show of hands of in favour, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? 1 against. Against, do you want that recorded, Stephen?
Yeah.
Recorded against. Thank you, that's carried. Thank you everybody for that.
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you for seeing that through. Thank you very much, Joanne.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for extending your time to accommodate us.
Yeah, no trouble at all.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So that's it. So have you still got who moved and seconded? Yes, we have. Who moved and seconded that report be received and council approved Western Holdings as presented, and we've got who to vote this. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So with that now, can I have somebody please move and second that we resolve that the council move into public excluded section, please? Councillor Beard, thank you very much. Councillor Phelps, thank you very much. So we'll adjourn for 2 seconds while we connect from Zoom.